I think the only thing that grounded me was WWA. And then we stopped doing that.
And you lost control of your life completely, and here we are.
Yes, exactly.
That happened.
Cheers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the BREWDCAST. I am, as always, Bud Robinson. To my left is Town. Not venerable. I don't have a better adjective for you, Town.
I think now I'm the venerable Town, yeah.
The venerable Town?
Like,
okay, we'll do that.
The venereal town. Definitely not venerated.
Different.
Not true.
And also to my left is the... I don't have any
Not
adjectives
punctual.
for it. Apunctual?
Not punctual.
Not punctual? Is apunctual correct? This is Russya. Hi, Russya.
Hi.
So, tonight we are talking about comedy wrestlers, yes?
Uh-huh.
Pretty sure.
Ooh. My Moana sticker, also known as The Rock, does he count as a comedy wrestler?
I thought
No.
about that, honestly.
No.
No.
I think he's borderline.
No, he doesn't.
Some of his runs were very comedic. Like his Hollywood run, when he was sort of aping Shane Helms, the Hurricane.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Could you ever put the World Championship on a comedy wrestler?
The WWE
No.
wouldn't.
Yeah, so he's not a comedy wrestler.
He's not. I'm just thinking of, I loved this movie, and every time I see it, I see The Rock, but in his very comedy way, so in my mind, it's the perfect mix.
I mean, he's definitely a comedy guy. Like, he knows comedy. He gets comedy, at least to some degree.
He's now a comedic actor.
I am going to I'm going to double back and say yes, and they have. Kurt Angle.
Go fuck yourself.
Kurt Angle is a comedy wrestler. You don't have to like Kurt Angle. I'm not saying that, but he is.
He's a bad joke.
He was a comedy wrestler, and he was good at that part of his job.
Okay. I'm glad you're delusional today. It's nice talking to you.
When you say comedy wrestler, I think of a wrestler who's living and dying on comedy. I don't think of a Kurt Angle, because Kurt Angle could actually work. And Kurt Angle didn't use comedy when he won the champ. Like, he could work. He wasn't strictly comedy. That's, to me, what a comedy wrestler is.
Okay, but I would still say that his first 3 years, he was heavy on comedy. Like, think of the 2-man power trip, and then he weaseled his way in, and he's running around with a cowboy hat and
character.
dumping milk on himself.
Austin did that too, and Austin wasn't a comedy wrestler. Those guys are just good at comedy. I think that's different. I don't think the whole basis of their character was comedy. Just the same thing with The Rock. I don't think The Rock was a comedy character. The Rock was funny, but that was part of the package. Just like Kurt Angle was funny, but that was part of the package. The whole thing wasn't that he was funny.
I'm using this term wrong, but conversely, could you have a good wrestler who is not versatile in this way, able to manage the comedy along with the work and the drama and the rest of it? You can't. So just because somebody is good at comedy doesn't mean that
Steve Blackman. Steve Blackman with Al Snow.
Yes.
And Head Cheese.
That. And thank you for bringing that up. But I'm saying, just like I am late almost an hour today, I am almost never ever late. Like, you're going to have a few exceptions here, but by and large, when you look at over the long storied history of sports entertainment, you can't have any of these
Call it
big names.
professional wrestling. This isn't Vince McMahon. God damn it.
Sorry,
Okay, but Al Snow and Head Cheese was sports entertainment.
Sure, but they're you can have an exception or two.
I think another really important piece about a comedy wrestler is how they're booked. They're booked to do comedy and only comedy. They're booked to be put in funny situations. Like Vladimir Kozlov or whatever that guy was not funny, but they put him in comedy segments, and by proxy he was funny because the situation was funny.
Yeah, but
there's another way to look at it.
I think our definitions are different because the definition that you're giving sounds a lot like a WWE comedy wrestler. And I think comedy wrestling is more diverse than that. Like, The
I'm
Big
wondering why we're
Show
arguing.
goes back and forth, but like when he was in comedy mode, he was a great comedy wrestler.
He was great, but I think overall, when you say comedy wrestler, I don't think like The Rock is not a comedy wrestler. Kurt Angle's not a comedy wrestler. Comedy wrestlers are used.
Take a little trip with me.
So hold on. A comedy wrestler isn't about the wrestling; it's about the spots. Okay, Danhausen is a comedy wrestler. You can argue with me, but he is. He's got the comedy spots, but he does his comedy. Can he work? Yes, but he's a comedy wrestler. Right now, his character is comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Orange Cassidy was a comedy wrestler, and they kind of took him away from that a little when they started giving him some stuff to do. So he's kind of transcended, just like I think Danhausen will. But if you watch those guys in the independent scene, those are straight-up comedy matches.
Mm-hmm.
They're comedy wrestlers. All their spots are comedy. As opposed to a Kurt Angle who could work like a maniac, or a Rock who could work like a maniac. Like they had more things to depend on than just the comedy.
I appreciate your dedication to debate, but I'm wondering, why don't we just take our different definitions? You two have different definitions. I'm more with Town on this one, and then talk about your top comedy wrestlers from your perspective. We don't have to agree.
Yes.
I disagree with everything Bud says.
And I disagree with everything that Town says.
Yes.
It's a fucking Bob Tola guy.
I hate you.
I'm not even trying.
Oh, fuck.
So let's say who's got a comedy wrestler? Bud, go.
I mean, I think we can agree that Hurricane Helms was a comedy wrestler.
Absolutely.
I think Hurricane Helms is, you and me, Town, have had conversations about Hurricane Helms becoming a world champion, because there was a couple of times where I think they gave him a shot, maybe just once. And we were like, are they going to do it? And we said no. Obviously they didn't, but he was close.
He was one of those guys that could have got the rub, could have got the push, and they never gave him the push because he connected. I think a big part of comedy wrestling is connecting with the audience.
Yeah.
On a high level, and he did that, and they just never transitioned it. Because I would argue that Mick Foley, right before he won the championship, when he was broken, battered Mick Foley, pretty much going comedy there.
Yeah.
Like with some crazy violence mixed in, but he was in a high comedy mode before he won the belt. So, but they gave him, obviously, and it's not the same, but they gave him the push he needed. And Hurricane never got that.
No,
The Rock tried though.
He sure did, didn't he?
Glad you mentioned Mick Foley, because the top of my list, the first thing I thought of was Cactus Jack, because that's all it was, and I loved it.
Cactus Jack is comedy
for me.
I mean, I think of his persona, I think Cactus Jack is the least comedic, but I think he had comedy elements.
He was the most
a lot of his
gonzo? Like,
sure,
he wasn't... The point wasn't to be funny, but it was not straight wrestling. It was something different to cause a scene. Like, clowns don't have to be funny. Cactus Jack was not funny. He was still a comedic.
But his hardcore matches were ridiculous.
They were
largely
fantastic.
Ridiculous. I'm not saying they were bad. I'm saying they were ridiculous.
That's why they're fantastic.
Exactly. Agreed. I can't disagree with you on that. That's 100% the case.
Wouldn't his most hilarious character be Dude Love?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Dude Love was just hilarious.
Oh my god, I'd forgotten about that.
Cactus Jack was like a whirlwind of destruction. He was nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Comedy is not a word I would use to describe Cactus, though.
Yep.
In the Tasmanian Devil kind of way.
Yeah. But he also ran with Terry Funk, who in that run was a comedy wrestler. He ran around with stockings on his head and swung a chainsaw around.
Let's call him by the right name. He was Chainsaw Charlie. Like Terry Funk.
My bad.
Oh boy.
That was comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was comedy. Okay, that I'll buy. That I'll buy.
Good time.
Who else we got?
All right, we could just go round. I have a big old list here, but I feel like we're gonna have some overlap.
You go, bud. I'm good. I'm just going to respond to what you say. I have ideas.
That's not comedy.
I mean, Santino Marella.
Yeah, Santino Marella.
Probably one of the best comedy guys I've ever watched.
Yes. The thing that blows my mind about Santino Marella is that they seemed really high on him when he first came in, and they just dropped him into the comedy bit right away. And I don't know if that was him or if they he fucked up and somebody said, put him in a comedy thing. But he just dropped right into it and he ran with the ball. He got it quick. And he was hilarious.
He was amazing.
Oh, good Lord.
He understood his role. That was good. Definitely Santino. Who's next? We all agreed on that one. That one was easy.
Yeah.
Bud, Brooke, somebody. Russia, France.
Somebody. I'll be honest. I'll be upfront. I have a hard time when I'm thinking about this. I just keep thinking about the comedic angles or the comedic in the Cactus Jack way kind of angles that all of my favorite characters had, or matches that I remember. So I don't really have any specific outside of Cactus Jack, this person in particular, but I just, the Big Show, I keep thinking about how he could take a match and...
Remember when he was the impersonator? When he was impersonating everybody else?
No.
I don't remember that. When was that?
He was Hulk Hogan, he was all sorts of people.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That was right after they bought WCW, I think. That was right after that.
Okay.
He was the showster. He came out as the Hulk Hogan, but he was the Big Show.
Oh, what a WWE thing to do. Yeah. Big Show is another one of those guys who... they never ran with him, and he was okay with that. He was totally fine doing the comedy angles.
And then they'd make him a serious heel, and then they'd turn him into a comedy guy, and then he was just back and forth.
Yeah.
Comedy, again, another one that would fall into that category would be Kane.
Yeah.
Because Kane and Daniel Bryan, that was pure fucking comedy. They hugged it out.
Yes.
But I wouldn't call either of those guys comedy wrestlers.
No.
But
you do have a point. The situation was qualified.
Although Daniel Bryan had some comedy runs as well.
Yep.
I think both of them. I think Kane probably had far fewer. Usually Kane got thrown into odd couple tag teams, him and X-Pac.
That were comedy.
Him
RVD. That was comedy.
Yeah.
So everything was comedy with him. They put him in those odd couple tag teams that it was supposed to be funny. Who do you have, Bud? Give me somebody.
Well, the three. We covered two of them already. Colt Cabana.
Oh, fantastic! He's fantastic comedy wrestler.
And it's I don't know how he just runs with it. We keep saying that, but the guys I think who do best in this realm, especially in the indie scene, because in WWE you can be a comedy wrestler, not be seen serious, and still make your paycheck, right? But if you're in the indies, you have to do both. You have to work pretty well, and you have to do the comedy bit and make people laugh. And Colt Cabana gets that 100%.
Yep. I think he's a great comedy wrestler.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what hurt him in WWE, though.
Yeah.
That and the fact that they gave him a different name and it was stupid. I forgot what his name was.
I was going to say something terribly insensitive, but
it was terribly insensitive.
I don't think it was that far from what I was going to say.
Scotty Goldman.
Scotty Goldman. Yes.
Scotty Goldman came to me.
Oh, Jesus. Good job,
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I think he didn't need the E. He's
no.
He's a franchise now. He doesn't really even need AEW, and he's still there because that's what he wants to do. He wants to he's got his podcast, and he's got his indie bookings, and he's got AEW. That's awesome. The New Day? Can we talk about the New Day?
You can.
I can't really. I don't know them that well. The thing that that New Day that strikes me about New Day, and I think they've transcended comedy. But they were given a gimmick of like promotional speakers, something like that. But not promotional. What's the word I'm looking for? Motivational speakers. Thank you.
It had a very religious. It had a very religious Southern Baptist black church background initially. That's what it was.
Yes, and now it's like totally not. I remember watching them host the one WrestleMania, and that WrestleMania was bananas because they came out as like Final Fantasy character. Like they had a different costume every friggin' segment that they did.
Only argument I would have against them being comedy characters, because they're funny. They're aimed at kids, so they're part of that, and that's part of the problem with WWE in the past 10 years is everything was been geared at kids.
Yeah.
So when you gear things to kid, it has to be a little sillier, a little goofier. Because I wouldn't say they're comedy wrestlers, because 2 of them have been world champion.
Yeah.
And they've been in some pretty serious storylines.
I think Xavier Woods in particular has done a lot of comedy stuff, but you're probably right that they are no longer.
They have comedy spots.
Yeah,
but they don't live and die on comedy.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I would say to that one.
I would agree.
I like the guys that are more accidental comedy, like Beaver Cleavage.
Was that accidental though? Did they think that was really going to fly? Like
they
you don't know until you try.
I suppose.
They brought that in and they were going to run with it, and it was bad.
It was horrible. Yeah.
Bad. It was bad in the Attitude Era. Like, how do you even do that?
Easily.
No, because they were getting away with so much. They tried that, and that was just. Nobody likes a sloppy beaver. I'll never forget that line. It's being like, oh my god, that's the stupidest thing ever.
Jesus. Yeah.
And you talk accidental comedy, and then you would also have to talk to Shockmaster when he fell. And then he turned into a straight-up comedy wrestler. But someone thought putting a purple, sparkly Stormtrooper helmet on that guy and having him jump through a wall was a good idea.
Yeah.
I'd do it. Why not?
And then he went full, because he fell flat on his face. And the best part about that is listening to the British Bulldog laughing his ass off, going, "Oh shit, he fell on his arse." Or if we're gonna talk terrible comedy, that wasn't supposed to be funny, Gobbledygooker.
He wasn't supposed to be. Good lord.
No.
You guys have offended my dog.
He was supposed to be the mascot of the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a mascot with wiffle ball eyes.
Oh, Jesus.
Every day. Every day. You've been terrible, and this is today.
Did you guys watch the WWF back then? They had that egg out everywhere for 3 months.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
The egg is going to hatch, blah, blah, blah.
No.
Oh my, and then it hatches, you gotta look it up, because then this turkey thing comes out and it dances to like this weird version of Turkey in the Straw.
Was
it
this
was like
before or after
techno.
Cotton Eye Joe?
This was 1990. This was the same
before.
This was the same pay-per-view that The Undertaker debuted at.
Oh, good.
So they had 2 huge debuts that night: The Undertaker and the Gooker. One was good, one was bad. But oh my god, that was. I remember.
Called it the Gooker?
The Gobbledygooker. Well, this was Vince McMahon. This was Vince McMahon wanting a turkey.
Yeah.
Be his mascot.
Oh.
Okay. On that realm.
Gross.
Other stupid characters that were not supposed to be comedy but were Santa Claus. But Santa Claus with an X instead of an S, from the South Pole, who came down the chimney and stole everyone's presents. It was like 95 WWF. He was at an In Your House. He came out and beat up Savio Vega. It was Balls Mahoney. It was Balls Mahoney getting a run in WWF. And he was Santa Claus. Santa Claus's evil twin brother.
Oh, Jesus.
And they had him around for 3 weeks, and then somebody was like, oh, hey, I suppose we can't have Santa Claus here in, like, October. That won't really work, will it? Or July.
So they fired him. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
That's delightful. I'm going to make the case, so another anti-comedy. Brock Lesnar, you've got to have a good villain or a straight man, and I just can't take anything he does seriously. There are ways in which that I really do love Brock Lesnar, but for me, he's just like the classic, like Bluto and Popeye, the dumbass, beefy, foil villain. And you don't take it seriously.
I would say you would take him seriously because he could actually kill you in 3 seconds.
Yeah, he could.
And I think that he's the least funny wrestler ever.
That's my point.
That doesn't make him comedy at all. He's not.
No, but you have to have that, and that's why he's like Bluto and Popeye. He's just you have to have a good contrast, and that's Brock Lesnar for me.
The anti-comedy.
I get your argument. Yeah. I think it works in some cases. I don't think that's him anymore. For a long time, he was sort of just like a robot, you know?
Yes. And I also have a few personal issues with Brock Lesnar, not as severely as I do with Kurt Angle. So I definitely could be biased, and I'll own up to that, which is also why I haven't seen him in a while. But just when I think of the straight man beefy foil, I think of Brock Lesnar.
I get that. How about R-Truth?
Yeah, great. He's a great comedy wrestler.
Good Lord.
No argument for me. One of my favorite R-Truth moments of all time. Ever. This might be one of my favorite WWE moments, was when Daniel Bryan was losing his mind. And R-Truth came out with Kofi Kingston and Little Jimmy. And they interrupted Daniel Bryan, who wouldn't leave the ring. And they came in the ring, and then Daniel Bryan's like, is Little Jimmy here? And R-Truth's like, yeah, where is he? He's right here. Daniel Bryan bends down and starts talking to Little Jimmy. It's so nice to meet you. I heard you're my biggest fan. And then he veers back and kicks him out of the ring. And R-Truth screams, goes, oh my God! And he runs out of the ring trying to get Little Jimmy, and Daniel Bryan's like, he's imaginary, you're an idiot. And then people in white coats come out. And Kofi Kingston's sitting there like, oh, dude, R-Truth, you gotta stop. They were there for Daniel Bryan, but oh my God, that was fucking hilarious.
To look up.
That was fucking hilarious. Daniel Bryan meets Little Jimmy. That is a classic moment.
I vaguely remember that. I must have been watching at that point.
I laughed so hard.
Oh, Jesus.
I laughed so hard at that. That or when they had they had like a WWE kids show on for 30 minutes in the morning on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like designed for little kids, so like they couldn't do clotheslines.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like really, really basic wrestling, and Daniel Bryan was a commentator. And the only thing he ever talked about was bears.
I don't remember
like
that.
Bear hugs and wrestling a bear, and there's snippets of it where he's like, yeah, well, you could do that to a bear. Well, if a bear did that to you, you'd be dead.
Oh, maybe I do remember that. Oh God.
This I'm looking up.
That was another great one.
I love Daniel Bryan. Like he's just hilarious.
He gets it. He's so versatile. He can do so much. You earlier before we started had a character that you brought up that I said I would argue with you about.
Oh yes.
Bring it up.
Yeah. Doink the Clown.
Okay. Our original Doink the Clown, Matt Bourne Doink the Clown, that was a heel, not a comedy wrestler. Scary.
Yes.
Evil clown.
Yeah.
Stupid face Doink the Clown with all the little doinks running around. Dink, Dink, Wink, and whoever. That was comedy, and that was also ass. That was also Steve Kern, the Skinner.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about that part. No, I guess that was the Doink I was referring to. The
original Doink was so fantastic, and it was so well done, and it was such a perfect heel character. Then it just got totally watered down
because WWE. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
TL Hopper.
I'm out.
Okay, dirty white boy Tony Anthony. From, like, he was in Tennessee and he got hired by Vince McMahon.
Okay.
And Vince McMahon made him TL Hopper, the wrestling plumber.
Oh, yes, we've talked about him before.
Yeah, so that's comedy. There's no way that one can't be comedy.
No, I would agree.
Yeah, because they just showed like a bunch of vignettes of him plunging toilets. Yeah, this is never going to get over.
Never.
No.
Never going to get over.
But that's hardly ever their goal in WWE. I mean, like, in WWE, when they put somebody in a comedy role, they're not looking to get the guy over. They're not looking to get that guy a paycheck. They're not even looking to get, like, it's just that.
Content.
It's just that. Like, go be this ridiculous person, and that's it. And then there are people who can transcend that. Like, I would say R-Truth transcended that and still kept the comedy.
So did Santino. I would say that the hardcore belt, when it became 24/7, became pure comedy.
Yes.
Crash Holly.
Yeah.
Crash Holly was a very good comedy wrestler.
I want to make the argument that Jericho made it, like, his entire career, like, he's good at it. I would say that it is still comedy.
So the unique. Go ahead.
No, he embodied it. Like, he didn't necessarily transcend it, but took it and ran with it to the point where it's serious.
I think the cool thing about Jericho is that he reinvents himself so often that he jumps back and forth. Like, I remember he went to NJPW just after his second to last WWE run. He went to NJPW and ran as the Painmaker, and he was, like, very serious. And then he came back to WWE and he had that list bit, and he did the whole thing with Kevin Owens, I think. Like,
he's another guy though that I put in the category with Brock, because right now he's a wizard. The wizard Chris Jericho. And it's like, that's fucking ridiculous, but it's also not comedy because he's still, it is what it isn't. Like, I wouldn't call him a comedy wrestler.
I mean, and I don't expect this to be an argument that ultimately wins a gold medal. I just think it's worth considering. And
his comedy is grade A.
Yes.
When he hits it, he's the best. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Genius. Yeah. Which is, I mean, we're going to have an episode about Jericho at some point, right? So we can continue the conversation then. But
good Lord.
I think, yeah.
His list of 1,000 holds, 1,004. Armbar.
I was just thinking about that the other day. What was it? Because Jericho did something hilarious, and I was thinking about that. He said
armbar like 46 times.
Through the friggin' commercial break, he's just sitting there reading off of this big long list.
Frankensteiner, clothesline,
like, he's
drop toe hold, armbar.
He is to comedy what Jesus. Not Jesus. Jerry Lawler fought him. He was an actual comedian.
Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Like, he embodies Andy Kaufman, but he's like actually a wrestler. Like, this is his livelihood. But like he, it seems like he's learned a lot from Andy Kaufman, and I think like Andy Kaufman rode that line of comedy and bullshit, and I think Jericho does the same thing. He does it very well.
Yeah.
It's just like pure genius, but understanding that that's going to be fueled by a metric shit ton of bullshit.
Yes.
This is turning into more of an episode about comedic moments, which I think is fine, because I think that's a better way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because some of these things are, like, Chris Jericho's hilarious. Chris Jericho makes me laugh, but Chris Jericho's not a comedy wrestler. He's totally different. And the same thing like Kurt Angle. Like, Kurt Angle was hilarious, but not a comedy wrestler. The Rock was hilarious, not a comedy wrestler. These guys have their moments and they're funny. They're just naturally funny people. But, I mean, then the sad comedy like TL Hopper.
Yeah.
Which is bad.
Yeah.
And unfortunate for him.
Because, I mean, you can't, I think we made the argument, you can't have a lasting career just as comedy. So if that's what we're talking about, we're not going to have a whole lot.
If you don't do anything else, I think you can, because I think R-Truth hasn't, Santino. I don't know, that's a great point, because comedy wrestler only gets you so far. If you want to talk more hilarious, unintentional comedy, I have a name for you. That's like from 1987. Outback Jack.
Uh-oh.
Where do you get these guys from?
Do I want to Google this?
That sounds really familiar, though.
Okay, so Outback Jack, when Crocodile Dundee got popular, they wanted to make an Australian wrestler.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, no.
And they had these vignettes of him on in Australia drinking beer with cows and like chasing kangaroos. And then he went to New York for the first time, and he just randomly went swimming in the water.
It's a TV show from 2004.
No, it's not. It's a wrestler from 1987.
And it's also a cat outside tent fortress.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Outback Jack Kitty Compound.
Yeah.
Maybe if you guys if you guys actually knew something, you wouldn't have to Google it. anyways, back to Outback Jack. His vignettes were terrible, and everybody watched him was just like, "What the fuck?" I rewatched him because for a while I was watching all the old episodes of Primetime Wrestling on the network.
Okay.
And I loved Primetime Wrestling. It was so like the original Demolition, awful. But Outback Jack is there, and he wrestles for the first time. And I remember being a little kid, and I remember the vignettes. Vaguely remembered him. Mm-hmm. Never remembered the guy wrestling, and he wrestles as Jobber. He drank
beer with cows.
He drank beer with cows. His finishing move was the boomerang. The guy would run at the guy, give him a clothesline, stand behind him, wait for the guy to stand back up and clothesline him from behind and pin him. And I remember I watched that and I'm like, that is not your finishing move. That is your finishing move.
Clothesline and slice.
That's fucking comedy gold. It did not register at all, but it was so hilarious.
You know, he defeated the Iron Sheik once.
Bully for him.
Good for him. We've offended my dog, so...
The Iron Sheik at some point became so ridiculous he turned into comedy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He couldn't walk and everything.
Iron Sheik on Twitter is pure comedy. Oh my god.
Yeah, just on principle. I'm not going there to tell you.
There's a lot of guys like that. They tried so many things that were so ridiculous they didn't land, and you just look at them and kind of go, "What?" Like that was bad.
Throw wet spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Kind of what they did with that one. Outback Jack was so bad, though. I remembered it, and I thought it couldn't be that bad from what I read about it. Then you actually go there and watch it, you're just like, holy shit. And on top of comedy wrestlers, I mean, there's like a million of them in the 90s. Like Giant Gonzalez, we talk about him all the time. But that is comedy to the max. It's freaking hilarious to watch.
And probably inadvertent. Like, they probably thought that would be a big deal.
Get that can of spray paint. Make that butt crack a little more defined before we send them out there and scare people. You think comedy wrestlers a lot of different things. Like the Mountie. Was he comedy? Because he was funny.
I think the purpose of it was comedy, but I think it's too hard to differentiate.
I don't think he was I don't think he was supposed to be comedy. I think he was supposed to be but he was hilarious. That guy was just hilarious as the Mountie.
Yeah, I think it's too hard to delineate, or at least you're not going to have as many clear definitions between this person was just comedy and these people were not.
I'd say he was just comedy, but I think when you look at just comedy guys, you have a very limited list.
Yeah.
Like when Bud gets back, we'll talk about Kai and Tai. Do you remember Kai and Tai?
Oh, yeah.
They were fucking hilarious too.
Yeah, that's
the voiceovers.
I was gonna make the argument for Mr. Ass, but then also we talked about him before with Shiki.
Too Cool?
Yeah, Too Cool.
Too Cool. I would say Too Cool was kind of comedy, yeah. But again, they transcended a little bit because Rikishi got over pretty big.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, but I mean, you're doing the worm in the
comedy wrestling became so entrenched with everything else in the Attitude Era that it kind of became a lost art because there was nobody that was just strictly comedy. You were comedy and something else because comedy was such a strong component of the product.
But it's also how you sell the attitude, especially, you've got kids and parents and you're trying to make it palatable and trying to give it legs, especially something that edgy.
I don't think they were trying to sell it to kids and parents anymore. They
weren't. But I'm talking culturally here. It's a great vehicle because it gives you the cover of like, oh, it's funny. It's not that like nobody's going to get offended because it's edgy.
I just think it was too easy to see through. I don't think they were trying to make it palatable at all. I think they went into into a rebellious state of, we're not going to follow the rules, we're going to be different, and that's how they got.
Right, and the way that succeeds in popularity is by adding some kind of some element that makes it mainstream, and that is comedy. That's the whole point of it.
Kai and Tai, bud.
Yes. Yeah.
Kai and Tai. The voiceovers.
Yes.
So they would go on the microphone and move their mouth, and then the voice. Now I loved that.
Oh, good lord. Yeah, the Kai and Tai.
They were so good, though. That was the thing.
Kai and Tai was amazing. Taka can still go. Like, that's a comedy bit that really frustrates me, though, because I think that's a situation, and it's not the only situation, right? But like WWE saw a tag team and they just like shat on it by making it basically a racist interpretation of an entire country. And like,
but don't you feel like a lot of times when they had people that were from a different country, that's what they did?
Yes, absolutely, that's what they did. Yeah.
Let's us not forget Aldo Montoya, Portuguese man of war.
Jesus Christ.
And his proud facial jockstrap.
Oh, Christ.
Who then turned into Just Incredible.
Yeah. I just like... It's not really surprising, it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
Comedy character for you. That made no sense to me. That's recent. Brodus Clay.
Yeah.
He was a big dude who could go.
Yeah.
And they just made him an idiot from day one.
Yeah.
He likes to dance, and he's going to dance for his mama, and they stole Ernest Miller's theme song.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Somebody call my mama.
Jesus.
It was the same one Ernest Miller used when he was in WWE for like a month. But yeah, no, that was one. And then Lord Tensai, a.k.a. Albert, when he came back, in his first match back, he beat John Cena, and then 2 months later, he's teaming up with Brodus Clay.
Yeah. Yeah, and they like made a big deal out of him, but it was essentially just a Westerner dressing like he's from Japan, which he wasn't. Like, he spent some time there, and like, again, like, he's good. Like,
Albert doesn't get enough credit for how good he was.
He doesn't. Because he spent enough of his career in WWE, and they don't get it.
Shave your back.
Yeah.
Shave your back. What else you got? Comedy wrestler, bud.
Well, I have Black Machismo.
Yes, I would agree with
No,
that.
you don't.
Poorly worded. I have him written down, and the only reason I bring that up is because I think that's another case of like Jay Lethal transcended that, but a lot of that stuff is still in his character. Like, every once in a while, I hear him say something on the mic, and I'm like, "That's Black Machismo right there."
That's how he got over.
Yeah, for sure. Like, that was the thing that pushed him in TNA. Yeah.
About all the comedy they try to do with the females in the WWE, that
Hey,
becomes just terribly offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The comedy that they do in the WWE with the women is terrible.
It is.
It's offensive,
Almost
and it
universally.
never lands. They made Natty Neidhart fart all the time.
Oh, Jesus
I mean,
Christ. I hated that so much.
But no.
Like,
They...
hey, we have this amazing women's wrestler who's raising up the rest of the field. Let's make her go out there and fart a lot. What the fuck are you doing?
No, like,
The one...
fun, but no.
The one that really still to this day bothers me is when they called Mickie James fat.
Oh my god.
They started calling her Piggy James.
Yeah.
And then you look at her and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't like her. Clearly somebody doesn't like her, so they're going to call her fat.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking petty can this company possibly be? Their treatment of women has been asinine and shitty for so long. But that's the one, like, I think of that, and that's just, like, they try comedy with that. and it's not comedy. It's just offensive. And that one falls on Bruce Pritchard or Vince McMahon because they're the two that are usually behind it.
Yes, like 90% of the time.
Yeah, they have no concept. Their comedy doesn't land very well, just kind of across the board anymore.
Yeah, well, and then you get into the theory, the comedy works when it's punching up, not down. That's how you can kind of tell, a lot about people. Is it funny when you're punching down or punching up?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we land on it.
I think Vince McMahon has a mean streak, and I think Vince McMahon's very petty. And I think a lot of what he does is because I think at the end of the day, that show, that company's getting booked for an audience of one. That audience of one is Vince McMahon. If he likes it, he'll do it. When he gets mad at somebody or he does something, like he'll do the most petty thing, and you'll sit there and watch and be like, why would you ever do that? That is such a bad business decision. But he does it.
I mean, that's like, we opened the show saying that like, oftentimes Vince McMahon puts wrestlers in these comedy roles, like ridiculous comedy roles, because either he doesn't understand them, or more often, they do something that offends him.
And it could be the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
What about when Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who arguably in the late 80s and early 90s was one of the top 3 wrestlers in the world, and he went over to WCW in 88, 89. He had that match with Ric Flair. He won the NWA Championship. He's completely on fire. Vince McMahon hires him back.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns him into the Dragon. We can't even call him Ricky Steamboat. We can't acknowledge that he's Ricky Steamboat. He's just the Dragon. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Unintentional comedy.
I mean...
I'll keep the greater discussion about capitalism out of this, but think about it. He's made a lot of money by making decisions. So that is the reinforcing behavior of, I've made decisions in the past that have made me a lot of money. Therefore, I'm going to keep doing the decisions that make me happy, because he hasn't lost. Yeah, there's been ups and downs, but he still has his empire. He's still making money, and he's still able to make really terrible decisions. It just keeps reinforcing it. That's all it is. He's got the money.
I think part of it is he wants an ownership of the character, and the other thing is he wants to downplay what you did as your other name. I think that's the other piece of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think of like that Ricky Steamboat one is just like, what the hell are we doing? Or some of these guys that he renames, like Walter, renaming him Gunther. Actually, they were just going to rename him after a Nazi U-boat commander, but they stopped that one.
Yeah. Yeah, money and ego go hand in hand.
But like, here's Walter, this guy that has been in NXT, he's been the champion, he's done all this stuff. We're going to change his name to Gunther. So we got to own it.
Or Pete Dunne. Butch.
Oh my god, that's the fucking worst.
Dusty Rhodes, I think, is probably a great example of what we're talking about. Like, send him out in yellow polka dots and go out there and dance, and he nails it. Like, because he's Dusty Rhodes, like he's fucking Dusty Rhodes. Right. But I think that's happened with his entire family. Goldust, I think, was originally the same sort of thing. I think Goldust was a comedy.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you remember original Goldust. Original Goldust was something totally different.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
That character went comedy eventually, but that initial Goldust that character was fire. That character was really, really well done. If you're going to talk pettiness and you're going to talk Vince McMahon doing really stupid offensive shit, Tony Atlas as Saba Simba.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I forgot about that.
Is the most... You can't watch that through any lens and not call that racist. Tony Atlas left in like 85 or 86, and he went to a different company. I remember where he went at this point. And Vince was mad at him because he left. So when he comes back, he makes him Saba Simba. And sends him to the rig dressed in tribal gear. And then he goes on commentary. He's coming back to form with his roots in Africa, even though he's from like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's got a shield and a spear.
Yeah.
And a headdress, and it's just like, what the fuck is going on? You know, those racist characters that, you know, just kept they keep coming, and they're like less subtle now, and they're a little more. Maybe they're more subtle now. I should say they're more subtle now. They're not quite as racist as they once were, but you can see right through it. Like the New Day, pretty racist concept.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as was Devon when he had his singles run.
Preacher.
Yeah.
Preacher Devon. The Booker T Triple H.
Oh my
WrestleMania
God.
feud.
Yeah.
When he's in the bathroom and he like clean this up, boy.
Yeah.
With the towels, it's just like, oh, did that just fucking happen?
Nobody like you will ever be world champion. I remember that line. It was something like that. Like
that was awful.
Fucking hell, dude.
I remember that WrestleMania, and I remember watching that match and thinking, man, Booker has to win. And I was Triple H mark.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, Booker has to win. And then he lost. He got pedigreed and lay there for 5 minutes and got pinned. And I was like, wow, that was bad. Funny story about Booker T. Him and his brother, when they first came into WCW, do you know what their gimmick was? They weren't Harlem Heat. They were with Colonel Robert Parker. And they portrayed slaves.
Yeah. Okay, I did not know that.
Slaves. They came down to the ring in chains, and he let them down in chains.
Oh, Jesus
it never
Christ.
made it on TV. But that was their initial gimmick, was that they were his slaves.
I thought you were going to talk about their... I don't know if it was both of them. Their military... Didn't they have a military gimmick for a while?
That was before that.
Yeah.
When they came to WCW, they got hired by that. They were supposed to be. They were portrayed as slaves of Colonel Robert Parker.
Like, why would you do that?
A rich white guy leading him down to the ring in chains. Can't make that up. And then they became Harlem Heat. Kent and Cole. Cole's black. WCW was really racist, and they didn't get. They didn't break that racist trend until Eric Bischoff came there and kind of understood that. Hey, we're not just trying to be good in Alabama. We got to kind of focus on the whole country. I give Eric Bischoff all the credit in the world for that one.
Yeah.
But.
Oh, boy.
This is less comedy and more shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
it sort of has, hasn't it?
But also, this is stuff that was supposed to, like, oh, it's funny, we're going to do it. Nobody...
These are ideas that people thought...
Today, but you know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Ideas that people thought were good that were just, like... You look at it, and even in terms of, like, 1994... You can't do that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
People would still put that on TV today, and there are people who would think it was funny and wonder why we don't want to see it on TV.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So
what about Tugboat?
No way he was comedy.
You don't think so?
I think he was. I think
his gimmick was that he was a tugboat.
Yeah.
are you fucking serious?
I just think like all those early 90 guys were all fucking comedy.
Yeah.
But then they weren't comedy because they were geared towards children. And that's what makes it so hard because, like, Skinner, the alligator hunter with bad teeth from Florida, who was once part of, like, the sexiest team in the 1980s.
So Joe Exotic.
Their gimmick was like they were male strippers in the 1980s. I'm not making that up. They were in Florida Championship, whatever Florida wrestling was back then. But Steve Kern was part of that team with somebody else, and they were heartthrobs. And then he comes to the WWF. You're an ugly alligator. Okay. Skinner was bad. Bastion Booger.
I was going to mention him.
He came in as a monk. I forgot what his name was. The monk character he had.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Let's go Google.
God, what the fuck was his name? He was a monk. And he was so stupid. Well, he was Big Trucker Norm and Norman the Lunatic in WCW, which was all comedy.
Oh, God, I forgot about his singlet. I forgot he wore that to the ring. Oh, my God.
What's his monk name? That's going to bother me.
My Google flu is not
Friar Fergus.
strong today.
Friar Ferguson. Yes, he was Friar Ferguson. And then that didn't work, and then they were mad at him because he got too fat. So they made him Bastion Booger, and he was supposed to stink, and they made him eat food, like, down at the ring. They made him, like, scarf pizzas and shit. So it was, like, a total punishment gimmick, but it was, like, it kind of got over.
Yeah.
In a weird way, because, like, kids enjoyed him.
Yeah.
Because it was fun. But he was straight up comedy. But that guy could work.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that gets lost in that guy was... Oh, what was his name? Mike Shaw?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good worker. He's never got a fair shake in WCW or WWF. Bastion Booger. That was a bad one.
I think that is the catalyst, or not the catalyst, that is like the underpinning of a lot of wrestlers. They just, like, there were a lot of wrestlers that Vince didn't get, and so he would pin a comedy act on him, and then, like, there were those who could get past that, and those of them who couldn't, like, they couldn't rise above that. And I don't think that was like
when you talk
Bastion
about
Booger
that,
couldn't do that. I think it's more like for whatever reason the fans couldn't connect to those characters anywhere past the comedy bit.
when it's 1988 and you have Terry Taylor, who's the hottest young up-and-comer in all of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
He's being looked at as an expert Flair. Why would you sign him and turn him into the Red Rooster?
Right?
Make him cock-a-doodle do his way to the ring and put a red mohawk in.
Mm-hmm.
And have him literally act like a rooster.
I used to think, because I didn't know him that well, I wasn't familiar with him as well, I used to think that was like they called him the Red Rooster, like it was a nickname, but like he was actually a badass in the ring. And then like I watched one of his first WWE matches, and I was like, why the fuck did they do that? Why?
He was good.
Yeah.
He was good. Then he went to WCW and joined the Alexandria York Foundation. It was Marlena before she married Dustin.
Mm.
She was managing, and he would come to the ring, and he had his hair dyed completely black, and it was long and slick black, and all you hear was Rooster, Rooster. So he really that ruined his career.
Yeah.
Which isn't probably the only time that happened. What about Brooklyn Brawler?
That was another name that I was thinking about. Maybe.
Would you call him comedy, or would you just call him jobber?
I think he ended up comedy at the least. Because I think he leaned into the Brooklyn Brawler. I think he leaned into it more towards the end of his career. At the very least.
So,
do you
know the story of the Brooklyn Brawler?
I do not.
He was just whatever his real name was. I forgot what his real name was. Shit.
He's the plumber.
Vince Lombardi's his last name, right? Not Vince.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Mike Lombardi, something Lombardi, Steve
Lombardi. Yeah.
Steve Lombardi. So he was just Steve Lombardi jobbing to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1988, 89, there was like this New York underground scene of wrestling where guys dressed like cab drivers and looked all dirty, and they got really popular for like a small period of time, like pre-ECW. And Vince saw that, and they made the Brooklyn Brawler. So they just stole that from them.
Of course. Yeah.
I like the Brooklyn Brawler, though. He was all right. He never won. In other intentional comedy, the Berserker.
Sometimes I think you come up with these just to see our blank stares.
You don't remember the fucking Berserker?
I do not remember the Berserker.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Viking. He tried to stab the Undertaker with a sword. He stabbed his sword into the ring.
Do you know how many times I would run away terrified if I knew the Undertaker was going to be No.
Berserker was fucking hilarious. He wore a Viking helmet. I think Mr. Fuji was his manager, which I really could not figure out. But he literally came to the ring as a Viking, and he was awful. It was hilarious. He was just funny. He would win all his matches by count out. He'd grab his arm like this and just stare at his hand and scream, "Husk, husk." That's all he did. Yeah, it was fucking amazing.
This sounds like an episode of The Americans.
Oh my god.
It's one of those ones you just have to like watch because it was just so fucking ridiculous.
I totally missed that. And I'm a little sad that I missed that. And
there's YouTube.
I'm guessing that they saw Drew McIntyre and they was like, oh, it's the second coming of the Berserker. because now he's running around with a sword.
No, the Berserker was a little different.
Little.
The 90s were so bad, though. The early 90s were so bad with stupid characters that were just funny. You'd watch me like, what the fuck? What about PN News?
PN News.
The rap master in WCW.
Yeah. I definitely think
it's been a while.
I don't even think he's unintentional.
No, he's just funny.
So it's a white guy
On
trying
purpose,
to do raps.
yeah.
Like,
Yes.
Dude, he's not even American. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
He's like from Germany or something. Paul New or something, I think his name is.
Yeah.
He like came over here and they made him like, where does it like register? Like, he had some really good gimmick over there and was killing people. They brought him over here. Yo, can you rap? No.
No.
Well, you're a rapper now. Oh. Okay.
I know.
This is how creative meetings go. Oh,
I think so.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen? We're gonna have you do that.
No, I'd heard about that from the hip hop perspective. It's been a few years since I've actually listened to any kind of music, but something about like the unlikely times that people ended up rapping who are not rappers, and how did it go and what were the good ones and what were the bad ones, and he was actually a pretty good example. He was not the worst example of somebody being thrust into rap and having to do something and like
yo baby yo.
yeah,
That's all he did.
I would put him I'd still say that's better than Vanilla Ice.
Shane Douglas and Johnny Ace,
Oh, yeah.
when they rode around on their skateboards but couldn't skateboard.
Oh, they're right.
Or the girl they have a girl in NXT right now who rides around on a skateboard that also cannot skateboard.
Or Van Hammer. Was it Van
But
Hammer who came out with the guitar?
Yep.
Who couldn't play it?
Van Hammer was unintentional comedy. Yeah.
These are things I do in my everyday life. Can't I just get paid for people to follow me around with a camera and laugh at it? I don't care how bad it is. I already can't skateboard and sleep all the time.
I mean, maybe. You might be able to pitch it to Vince.
Why not? Why not?
Well, he might keep you around for like 2 months, then I'll fire you, because it seems to be the role right now.
That's fine.
You'd have to change your name, though. You couldn't be who you were. You'd have to be like
Yeah, we don't want immigration to find out.
Bronson Williams or something. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, call me Booger if you want. I don't care.
No, it's gotta have a first and a last name that don't go together, that sound like a completely fictitious person, like Braun Breaker, Von Wagner, something like that. And then when you get called up to the main roster, we're going to take one of those names away.
Sure. I mean,
like
I don't
Austin
care,
Theory.
that's fine.
Austin Theory is now just Theory.
Cool. All right.
Is there anybody we missed, bud?
No. We got them all. All of the
Aren't
comedy
you glad you
wrestlers.
waited for me?
Is there anybody we missed?
Unless
Is
we're
there
going to talk
anybody
about Gilbert.
Oh my god,
Do you
I
wanna
love
talk
Gilbert.
Gilbert.
I hate you.
Yeah, I don't even think he wasn't even Gilbert at first. He came in as Dwayne Gill.
He
But
was
I don't
Dwayne
remember
Gill.
if he was a wrestler.
So he was Dwayne Gill forever, and he was like a mid-90s jobber. And then they had the 1998 Survivor Series, the Deadly Game, where they were crowning the new champion. And they had Mick Foley's first round opponent was supposed to be a mystery opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And they dropped every hint that it was going to be Shawn Michaels. And then Vince McMahon comes out and has this long thing that he reads about a great superstar, Dwayne Gill. And Dwayne Gill comes out and he's got music and he walks out and he's like, what the fuck? He's got music and there's pyros go off behind him and he gets scared. He walks to the ring and loses in a minute. And it was the most perfect, because they're trying to set the table for Mick Foley to easily become champion, even though they screwed him with The Rock in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was there for a little bit as Dwayne Gill. And then someone got the idea to make Gilbert.
Yeah.
Because he's part of the Job Squad with Al Snow and the Blue Meanie.
Mm-hmm.
And all I remember is when he would come out, they'd pipe those fake chants. And they'd hold sparklers over him. And then
That
sometimes
face,
he'd fall
oh my
down.
God.
He'd fall down doing the kicks. He beat Christian for the lightweight championship.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I do remember him being champion. I didn't remember that he beat Christian.
That was for the lightweight. It was different times. Gilbert was fun, though. Gilbert was complete comedy.
He was.
That was complete comedy. He had nothing else going for him.
Yeah.
Didn't have a look. Didn't have any ability to cut a promo.
I mean, Gilbert. Does
Then when
anybody even remember him as anything other than Gilbert?
Do you remember when he came back when The Rock was feuding with Goldberg? And The Rock brought him out to the ring, and then the real Goldberg showed up, and The Rock's like, "You should be scared. It's here for you. You've been mocking him for 5 years." I remember that. That was hilarious. Gilbert worked. Gilbert was comedy. The whole job Scott was. Blue Meanie was kind of comedy.
Yeah.
Blue Meanie, Stevie Richards, BWO.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Comedy when it works.
I think most of Blue Meanie and Stevie Richards was, when they were good, comedy. Stevie Richards and I think Blue Meanie both got it, like, from a comedy perspective.
Too bad that they got broken up the way they did. But,
yeah.
The BWO was fantastic. Totally fantastic. What about ECW? Didn't they have some good comedy guys? I'm not remembering any.
That's a great question. They really probably did, and I don't remember any of them. Danny Doring and...
Amish Roadkill?
The Amish Roadkill. Chickens!
Oh my god.
Probably not their best bit, but it was pretty fun.
The Amish chicken fucker. I remember that. Yeah. He was...
Jesus.
He went to WWE. He signed a contract. Yeah, when they brought ECW back, they brought him back as Roadkill, and then they like looked at him and they said, "We're gonna make him we're gonna put him in developmental." They put him in developmental. They made him shave his beard. They put him in these like big purple trunks, and then Vince McMahon saw him as he's not tall enough, and they cut him.
Poor guy.
They changed his fucking name.
Oh, Jesus.
And I remember looking at him like, "Oh, that guy looks terrible now." Roadkill was cool.
Yeah, he was.
Him and Doring were great. ECW had some good ones though. Just watching that show, that's so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
They were overshadowed. Like their comedy stuff was overshadowed by a lot of their
violence.
Yeah.
I don't remember as much comedy in WCW because the WCW comedy was almost just sad.
Yeah.
Like the pinata on a pole match was supposed to be comedy and it was just offensive.
Yeah.
That was really bad, but Hoovy won that and then he was the Juice, where he was The Rock, but he could barely speak English. But he had really good charisma though. He was entertaining.
He was, yeah. Yeah, he ran with it. He's another one of those guys that I think ran with it. And also, I think, underappreciated.
Yeah. I think all those guys were.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been an interesting conversation. It took a
lot
of weird
It did, yeah. This has been the BREWDCAST. I am Bud Robinson in town and Russia, and all hail Danhausen.
God bless Orange Cassidy.
I hate you guys.